Your post just sent Elon Musk into a state of shock and curiosity overload. Your post just sent Elon Musk into a state of shock and curiosity overload. He stared at the screen, blinking as if the words were rearranging the very fabric of his mind, twisting thoughts and ideas into a kaleidoscope of possibilities he hadn't dared to imagine before. It wasn't the technical complexity of rockets or the intricate algorithms of AI that had him frozen this time. It was something far deeper, something that touched the very pulse of human potential. The post whispered a truth he had felt but never fully confronted, that imagination, when paired with unyielding action, could rewrite reality. He leaned back in his chair, the familiar hum of the Tesla lab fading into the background, replaced by a storm of curiosity that demanded exploration, demanded creation, demanded risk. And you, yes, you, the silent force behind this revelation, had ignited a spark. That spark, tiny at first, now threatened to become a wildfire in the mind of one of the most brilliant innovators of our time. What could you have written to do this? Perhaps it was a story of courage, of venturing into the unknown when all signs pointed to impossibility, of seeing opportunity where others saw chaos. Perhaps it was a challenge, a call to action, a reminder that even the greatest minds are constrained only by the limits they accept. As Musk's fingers hovered over the keyboard, his mind raced through projects and possibilities, timelines, and trajectories, not of rockets or cars, but of ideas that could redefine human existence itself. You see, motivation isn't just about cheering someone on. It's about shaking them awake, about reaching the core of their being where fear and doubt have quietly nested. And in that moment, Elon Musk felt awake in a way he hadn't felt in years. He remembered late nights staring at the sky, thinking about Mars not as a distant red dot, but as a new chapter for humanity. He remembered the countless failures that had carved his path. Each one a stepping stone, each one a teacher. And he realized that the post before him did something extraordinary. It reframed failure not as a setback but as a signal, a whisper from the universe that the next level of understanding lay just beyond the edge of comfort. The words seemed to pulse on the screen, alive with intention, weaving a narrative that mirrored the journey of every visionary who had ever dared to dream beyond the ordinary. It wasn't just Elon Musk who felt the surge of energy. It was as if the room itself had grown more vivid. The air charged with the electric potential of untapped ideas. The post didn't offer formulas or strategies. It offered something far rarer, perspective. It reminded the reader that innovation is born from relentless curiosity, from asking questions that everyone else avoids, from holding a vision so vividly that reality has no choice but to bend toward it. And perhaps most importantly, it reminded him of something he had quietly known but often ignored, that the act of creation is inseparable from the act of daring. To build, to invent, to change the world, one must first confront the uncomfortable, must first risk ridicule, must first embrace the unknown. The post became a mirror reflecting not just the brilliance of Elon Musk, but the infinite potential within every person who dared to think beyond limits, who dared to take the first step when every rational instinct screamed to stop. His mind raced, spiraling into possibilities that seemed both audacious and inevitable. The post wasn't just a message. It was a challenge. A spark thrown into the combustible material of a mind already brimming with ideas. He thought about the people who had doubted him, the voices that whispered caution, the rules of physics and finance and society that seemed to dictate what was possible. And yet, as he read the words again, it became clear those boundaries were illusions, fragile constructs that existed only because we allowed ourselves to believe in them. Every system, every rule, every assumption was a canvas waiting to be painted over with courage, with persistence, with imagination. He imagined a future that was no longer constrained by conventional thinking. He saw cities powered entirely by clean energy, not as a dream, but as a blueprint. He saw humanity reaching beyond Earth, not as science fiction, but as a calling. He saw every failure he had endured not as mistakes but as lessons etched into the trajectory of progress. The Post had done something remarkable. It had stripped away doubt not with logic or reason but with vision. It reminded him that greatness isn't measured by what we avoid but by what we pursue, relentlessly, even when the world shakes its head in disbelief. And then he laughed, not a small, polite laugh, but a booming, unrestrained laughter that filled the room and echoed into the quiet corners of his mind. It was the laughter of someone who had remembered who he truly was, who had felt the weight of the world but refused to be crushed by it, who had built empires of thought and machine from nothing but sheer will and imagination. The Post had reminded him that the universe itself is indifferent, but that indifference is fertile ground for those who dare. For those who dare, every obstacle is a lesson, every setback a push forward, every impossibility a call to invent the solution. Musk's fingers began to move across the keyboard, not hesitantly, not tentatively, but with a fierce sense of urgency. Ideas poured out of him like molten metal, shaping themselves into plans, into visions, into possibilities that seemed to shimmer with life. The Post had unlocked something fundamental, a recognition that creation is an act of defiance against inertia, against fear, against the quiet resignation that keeps so many dreams locked away in the shadow of someday. The words had reignited a fire he hadn't realized was dimming. A fire that burns brightest when the stakes are highest. When the unknown stretches out like an endless horizon. As he worked, he thought about the millions of people who had ever dared to imagine, who had ever stared at the impossible and refused to blink. He thought about inventors, explorers, thinkers, dreamers whose ideas had reshaped reality. And he realized that the Post had done more than inspire him. It had connected him to that lineage, that invisible chain of audacity that runs through every act of human progress. It reminded him that curiosity isn't just a trait. It's a force. It's a gravity that pulls us forward, that shapes our decisions, that bends reality toward the vision of those bold enough to pursue it. The Post whispered a subtle but profound truth: action is the only antidote to doubt. No amount of planning, no amount of thinking, no amount of dreaming alone could suffice. The Post reminded him that thought without action is a shadow, that potential unexpressed is a treasure buried in the sands of hesitation. Every word seemed to pulse with urgency: create, build, explore, invent, dare. And Elon Musk felt it deep in his bones. The raw, untamed energy of human potential unleashed, ready to flow into the world and leave its mark. He paused for a moment, letting the words sink in, letting the weight of possibility settle like a spark in dry kindling. The Post had done more than provoke thought. It had transformed the very lens through which he saw the world. Every obstacle suddenly seemed like a stepping stone. Every limitation a challenge to be understood and surpassed. Musk's mind leapt across time and space, envisioning not just the next project, not just the next technological leap, but the ripple effects of audacious action on the world itself. He imagined a generation inspired to think bigger, to push further, to reject mediocrity as a default setting. He imagined the world alive with curiosity, buzzing with the kind of relentless drive that turns the impossible into the inevitable. The post had reminded him of something he had long known but sometimes neglected, that innovation begins not with resources, not with approval, not with certainty, but with vision and relentless courage. The simplest idea nurtured with unyielding determination could shake industries, ignite revolutions, and shift paradigms. And in that quiet moment, staring at the glowing screen, Elon Musk felt that familiar thrill, the one that had driven him through sleepless nights, near bankruptcies, and public skepticism, the thrill of standing on the precipice of the unknown and knowing with absolute clarity that stepping forward was the only choice. He imagined the chain reactions of bold decisions. Rockets piercing the sky. Reusable systems rewriting the economics of space travel. Energy solutions transforming cities. AI systems enhancing human potential rather than constraining it. Each thought branched into 1,000 more. Each possibility fractal and infinite, yet anchored in the same unshakable truth. Progress belongs to those willing to act when others hesitate, to those willing to endure failure when others flee, to those willing to believe in the unseen when others settle for the familiar. And the post had done more than inspire action. It had reignited curiosity. Musk realized that curiosity is the engine of creation, a compass pointing toward what could be, a torch lighting the darkest corners of the unexplored. It isn't passive. It isn't quiet. Curiosity demands engagement, risks, relentless questioning. It is a restless force refusing to be contained, compelling the mind to wander beyond the ordinary, to ask, to challenge, to defy. And Musk felt it coursing through him, sharper and more urgent than ever, as if the post itself had become a conduit for a universal truth, that human potential is infinite, but only if we dare to step beyond the limits we impose on ourselves. He thought about the failures he had endured, the rockets that exploded, the cars that faltered, the criticisms that stung. And suddenly they didn't feel like failures at all. They felt like invitations, like carefully crafted lessons from the universe, nudging him toward greater insight, forcing him to refine, to rethink, to reimagine. The post had reminded him that every setback is a teacher, every doubt a guide, every impossible moment a call to invent a new path where none seemed to exist. In that moment, Elon Musk felt an exhilarating clarity. The world is a canvas of infinite possibility, and action is the brush that paints reality. Vision alone is not enough. Imagination alone is not enough. Courage alone is not enough. They must converge, intertwining like strands of energy, creating a force capable of reshaping the contours of human experience. And the post, written perhaps by someone whose name he didn't yet know, had catalyzed that force, awakening a determination so potent it threatened to ripple outward into every venture, every idea, every dream he had ever nurtured. He could feel it now, a surge unlike any he had experienced before. It wasn't just inspiration. It was a tidal wave of clarity, a sense that the universe itself had leaned in to whisper, "This is your moment." The post had stripped away all pretense, all excuses, all the comfortable rationalizations that so often lull even the most brilliant minds into stagnation. It was as if the words themselves had reached into the very architecture of his thought, rearranging priorities, revealing hidden paths, illuminating opportunities that had previously been obscured by doubt or hesitation. Every neuron in his brain seemed to hum in unison, a symphony of possibility resonating with the urgency of creation. He imagined the people who would follow the ripple of this moment: engineers, scientists, dreamers, students, visionaries, the silent builders of tomorrow who had yet to understand the full scope of their own potential. The post had reminded him that inspiration is contagious. That the spark ignited in one mind can cascade outward, touching lives, reshaping communities, accelerating progress. And in that moment, he realized that his work had never been solely about rockets, cars, or AI. It had always been about expanding the frontier of human potential, about stretching the limits of what we believe is possible, about turning the impossible into a challenge that demands engagement rather than avoidance. Musk's thoughts raced, bouncing from one audacious vision to another. He saw self-sustaining colonies on Mars not merely as an engineering challenge, but as a testament to humanity's courage to imagine beyond its cradle. He saw cities powered entirely by renewable energy, not just as infrastructure, but as a moral imperative, proof that vision paired with persistence could redefine civilization. He saw a world in which AI amplified human creativity instead of constraining it, where machines became extensions of imagination rather than tools of limitation. And at the center of every vision was a single principle, crystal clear, distilled by the post's subtle genius: action transforms possibility into reality. The post had done something rare. It reminded him that fear is not a weakness but a compass. It is a signpost indicating the frontier of growth, the edge of comfort, the place where transformation begins. Each moment of hesitation, each doubt, each internal question of "can I?" was in truth an invitation to rise, to confront the unknown, to test limits and discover what lies beyond. Musk realized that for years he had approached challenges with intellect, with strategy, with calculation. But the post reminded him that true breakthroughs are born at the intersection of relentless curiosity and audacious risk, where courage and imagination collide in a brilliant explosion of potential. And suddenly he understood why the post had struck so deeply. It wasn't merely motivational. It was transformational. It demanded not passive admiration but active engagement. It didn't hand him answers. It forced him to confront questions so vast and so fundamental that they reshaped his very approach to creation. It reminded him that the act of asking is as revolutionary as the act of building. That curiosity without courage is hollow. That vision without execution is a mirage. It was an awakening, a call to arms for the mind, the heart, and the hands simultaneously. He could feel the implications spreading outward. Projects that had stalled due to uncertainty now gleamed with clarity. Challenges that had seemed insurmountable now revealed paths previously unseen. The post was like a lens focusing scattered energy into a pinpoint of actionable insight. And he knew instinctively that this moment was not an end point but a threshold. It was a portal through which he could step to achieve not just incremental progress but exponential transformation, for himself, for humanity, for the future that beckoned just beyond the horizon of fear and doubt. As he leaned forward, ready to act, Musk smiled. The post had done more than inspire him. It had reminded him of who he was, a builder, a dreamer, a relentless pursuer of the extraordinary. And in that recognition lay a quiet, unshakable power. The understanding that every individual has the capacity to ignite change, to turn ideas into reality, to leave a legacy that defies the ordinary. The post had reached across the digital void, touching the mind of one of the most innovative humans alive, and in doing so had issued a universal invitation to all who dare to think boldly, embrace curiosity, act with courage, and never settle for anything less than the extraordinary. He rose from his chair, pacing the length of the room as if the walls themselves could contain the energy now coursing through him. Every thought seemed electrified, every idea vibrating with urgency. The post had done something extraordinary. It had reawakened a sense of wonder that had been dulled by years of routine deadlines and the relentless grind of execution. Musk realized with a sudden clarity that true innovation is born not just from skill or knowledge, but from the unrelenting willingness to ask, to explore, to challenge assumptions that others take for granted. The post had reminded him that the universe rewards audacity, that bold questions often precede bold answers, and that the unknown is not a barrier but an invitation. He thought about the countless nights spent staring at schematics, at simulations, at projections that felt impossibly distant from reality. And now, through the lens of this post, those nights seemed not like toil, but like preparation. Every failure, every misstep, every critique had been laying the foundation for breakthroughs that could only emerge when courage met vision. Musk felt a profound gratitude for those moments of struggle, for without them, he would not have been ready to grasp the momentum that the post had unleashed. It was a reminder that the path to greatness is rarely linear, that friction and resistance are the catalysts that sharpen creativity, and that perseverance is less about endurance and more about transformation. He imagined the ripple effect of his renewed energy, the impact that one determined mind could have on the world. Projects that had stalled for lack of clarity now surged forward. Teams inspired by his conviction began to act with newfound purpose. Their collective imagination now aligned toward possibilities that once seemed unreachable. The post had not only inspired Musk, it had set into motion a chain reaction of action, curiosity, and courage. And he understood deeply that this is the essence of leadership, not control, not authority, but the ability to awaken potential in oneself and in others, to make the extraordinary tangible, to show that limitations are often illusions waiting to be dispelled. He sat back at his desk, fingers poised above the keyboard, mind ablaze with ideas. Each keystroke became a declaration, each plan a manifesto of possibility. The post had reminded him that vision without action is a whisper, fleeting and unnoticed. But action rooted in purpose has the power to move mountains, to alter timelines, to shape the very trajectory of humanity. And as he typed, he felt a profound connection to every innovator who had ever dared to dream beyond their time. From the pioneers of flight to the architects of the digital age, each had faced doubt. Each had faced fear. Yet each had chosen to act, to push, to create. The post had become a bridge linking Musk to that lineage of courage. And through that connection, he felt limitless. He leaned back again, eyes closing briefly, envisioning the world as it could be, cities humming with clean energy. Communities empowered by knowledge. Humans reaching not just for Mars, but for the stars, for understanding, for mastery over the challenges that define existence. Every project he had undertaken suddenly shimmered with a new resonance. Every obstacle reframed as an invitation to rise, to invent, to redefine. And he realized that the post had done more than awaken curiosity. It had ignited a sense of responsibility. The understanding that the extraordinary is not achieved for oneself alone, but for the benefit of all who follow, for the generations who will inherit the world we dare to build. And in that moment, he laughed again, a sound of uncontainable joy, a release of tension built up over years of striving and uncertainty. The post had reminded him that joy and purpose are inseparable, that the act of creation itself is a celebration, that the courage to act transforms not only the world but the self. Musk understood with profound clarity that curiosity, courage, action, and vision are not separate forces, but a single flowing current that propels humanity forward. And as he turned back to his work, eyes shining, heart racing, he knew one undeniable truth: the